Shabazz Muhammad, born November 13, 1992. Greg Anthony was once quoted saying about today's feature, he's a once-in-a-generational talent when he left high school as the #1 player in the country for his position and second overall only behind Nerlens Noel. The hype surrounding Shabazz was tremendous, and at that point, he fully deserved it. Against that level, he averaged 25 points a game as a junior and was the Gatorade Player of the Year. His senior season, he played in the McDonald's All-American game with all the top players in the class and won the game's MVP. Not long after, he was a lottery pick in the NBA draft, even though lower than he was rated going into college, but there was still a lot of expectations going to a team like the Minnesota Timberwolves searching for their next franchise star guard, like what they'd find in Anthony Edwards years later. His NBA career didn't get off to the best start as he dealt with limited time on the floor. He'd split that time there and in the D-League, but also injuries sidelined him his rookie year to only 37 games and 38 games his second year. He was finally playing well at over 16 points a game, being named to the All-Star Weekend Rising Stars game before he was injured again, but this time the injury required surgery and his season was done early. It was the final season he seemed to turn a corner and live up to the hype he had coming out of high school. With health no longer an issue over the next few seasons, Muhammad ran into others and his production began to slip quite a bit from his second and most successful season. Before the 2016-17 year, he was offered an extension for 4 years, $40 million, which he and his team considered a lowball offer from the T-Wolves, feeling with a strong upcoming season he could command at least $20 million a year on the open market. Well, a strong season didn't happen as the team played him slightly less minutes, with Zach LaVine showing promise in the shooting guard role, not to mention Andrew Wiggins and Karl Anthony Towns having borderline all-star seasons. The T-Wolves now had a young big three at all the positions they needed improvement going forward, leaving Shabazz on the outside looking in without the production to supplant those guys in value. Value is a good word because from there, the $40 million he turned down quickly seemed like a loss of much of it, as he only played one more season thereafter, splitting time between Minnesota and Milwaukee. His career never really took off, and since 2017-18, he hasn't played a game in the NBA. What happened? Let's talk about it. It's your boy JC Stunted Growth. Let's get it, man. Take a minute to like, subscribe, and comment on who I should do next. Shabazz Muhammad is a 6'6" shooting guard small forward from Long Beach, California, but played his high school ball in Las Vegas, Nevada for Bishop Gorman, where he was a standout from day one with a motor and athleticism unmatched by many on that level. By junior year, he was the best player in the state according to Gatorade, and as a senior, winning the Naismith Player of the Year and USA Mr. Basketball, running through All-American games, constantly proving he was a top player in the class. In hindsight, not a strong one. Nonetheless, it said a lot about his advanced development, which is why Kentucky, UCLA, Duke, and Kansas wanted his services, he ultimately choosing UCLA, where he had a decent freshman season on paper, but was seen by many as just a volume shooter given the green light to shoot at will that didn't play defense and didn't develop other dimensions of his game. Still, he was interesting, seeing as a story broke toward the end of the season that Shabazz was in fact a year older than his class at 20 and not the 19-year-old his father said he was, even trying to bury the story in the media about it. His draft stock slipped because of it, along with his play that didn't exactly pass the eye test like it did on paper. Stunt number 1, confidence lost early on. In competition, your best weapon is belief in yourself. It starts with that and is followed by the talent you have to work with and how dedicated you are to making sure you polish that talent to where you can consistently play to the best of your abilities. When you lose confidence at any point, you lose your roadmap and your talent has no direction. Confidence is key because without you having it yourself or someone else that matters having confidence in you, opportunity becomes less and less, and that's what happened to Shabazz Muhammad initially. Mainly the Timberwolves losing confidence in his unproductive first few seasons. He came to the Wolves after being drafted by the Utah Jazz and traded on draft night for Trey Burke and the 21st pick. Muhammad found the NBA much more difficult than previous levels, and by January his rookie year, he was already demoted to the D-League and buried on the bench playing just 8 minutes. He also dealt with an injury to his MCL that cut his season short on a not-so-good note. All this can shake a player's confidence as well as the team's confidence in the player, as he's not productive for them, hurt or not. The best ability is availability. His first 2 seasons, Shabazz wasn't always available. His second season, where he was playing well, was marred by injury and lack of opportunity. By the beginning of his third, Minnesota had found a few other options more suited for where they wanted to head, which Muhammad's development on the NBA level was moving in a different direction. Whether he lost confidence in himself or the team lost more in him, they showed what they thought of his value in the 4 years, $40 million they offered him in 2016, to which he famously turned down, never to see an offer like that again. Stunt number 2, circumstances beyond control. Shabazz Muhammad is an interesting player to feature because there were so many factors that played a part in him not lasting in the league, but one that stood out along with stunt number 1 is him being in situations he may not have had a fair chance to develop in. In just his second year, his Minnesota team drafted Zach LaVine with the 13th overall pick, who played the exact position as Muhammad and was much more suited for the NBA, offering more potential. Rookie number 1 pick Andrew Wiggins also fell into the team's lap after LeBron decided to return to Cleveland, causing the Cavs to trade Wiggins for Kevin Love, immediately placing the hyped Wiggins as the new face of the franchise, leading the team with 20 points a game his rookie season, winning the NBA's Rookie of the Year. By 16-17, LaVine, Cat, and Wiggins pushed Muhammad out the rotation and outside the team's future building blocks. By the 17-18 season, LaVine was traded to the Bulls for Jimmy Butler, and the team acquired Derrick Rose. Opportunity became less for Shabazz, eventually being traded to another team in Milwaukee that didn't have the opportunity he needed to show he was worth not just a significant spot on the roster, but that big payday he bet on himself to get. He played 11 games for the Bucks to finish out the 2017-18 season, and after preseason the following year, he was waived. Stunt number 3, lack of necessary development. To say Shabazz Muhammad isn't a better player today than he was in high school or college or even early on in the NBA would be a lie. But he didn't develop the skills the team needed in a timely fashion and played himself out of opportunity once again. He still couldn't go right. Even today, if you watch his highlights overseas, he always makes his move going left first, and if for whatever reason he has to go right, he reverts back to the left side to finish. It's something he got away with on levels before the NBA and the levels he's played since the NBA, but in the league, teams notice this and are better at strategizing against it. Not being able to adjust makes it hard for a team to invite the now 30-year-old back to the fold. He also struggled with inconsistency as a deep shooter, mainly in attempts, as he didn't show comfortability behind the arc at 1 attempt per game as a shooting guard. As far as on the defensive side of the ball, Shabazz has been lackluster since his UCLA days, and not much changed in the NBA. In 2015-16, he was ranked second to last in defensive real plus-minus by ESPN, ahead of only JJ Barea. This was a knock on his game entering the league and never got much better, along with the lack of necessary development all around. After being waived, Muhammad embarked on an overseas journey all over the world, lastly signing on to stay in China earlier this year, still hoping for an NBA call to come his way. All in all, Shabazz Muhammad is a case of not being suited for where the game was headed development-wise, causing a lack of opportunity, and time going by that completely took his time in the league away. He had it all at one point and made the NBA to his credit, but his career didn't take off like expected, and for these reasons, his growth was stunted. Salute, much respect, it's your boy JC Stunted Growth, and I'm out.